Bring on the Los Angeles Kings. Yes, the playoff matchup is set. At long last, the regular season has come to an end, and we can talk playoff matchup. Oilers versus Los Angeles Kings. Jason Strudwick standing by. We're going to break down the matchup. Might talk a little about last night's game, but not too much, right? Why? Why talk about last night? It's all about the Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings for the second consecutive year. Welcome to Got Your Back, Short Shift Edition. We are live streaming this morning on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook too, I think. If you're watching on Facebook, thanks for tuning in. Short Shifts, as always, brought to you by Mid-City Construction Management, a locally owned family company specializing in civil construction projects for over 40 years. Think about that. A local company, 40 years, 4 decades, working on some of the biggest projects in and around this great city. From roadways to excavation, underground utilities, paving, and concrete, they've played a massive role in the infrastructure of Edmonton and area since 1980. By the way, they are hiring. Go to mid-city.ca and click on careers, or you can search them up on Indeed and see all that they have to offer. Always looking for good people over at Mid-City Construction Management. Struddy, fresh off the broadcast last night. How we doing, pal?
Good. How are you guys making out?
Pretty good. Yeah, man. I don't know. I found myself so I went to the game last night and I'm watching it in the first period. Like I had my notepad out and I'm like taking all these notes. I'm like, really, I try and be pretty detailed when I'm in game and stuff. And I don't know why, I just sort of forced a habit. And then I kind of, at a certain point, I think it was right before the second period, I dropped my pen and I'm like, what am I doing? We're not even going to talk about this game tomorrow. Like all of these notes I'm making are going to be meaningless because we're not even going to talk about the game because it's all about the playoff matchup. And I finally know where I'm booking a ticket to go, Struds. That's the thing for me this time of year. I don't really care. I don't really cheer. You cheer for like the good cities and the easy flights. And all I know is there's a direct from Edmonton to LA. So that's good for me.
Yeah, you're probably hoping for an LA then Vegas type series, that, and then maybe a Denver. Those aren't 3 bad cities to go to, that's for sure. And they, as far as I only know, they all have direct flights compared to maybe a Nashville or something like Carolina. Well, I guess that'd be the second or the last round.
Not going to complain about stepping off the plane in LA. Versus
those aren't the worst
Winnipeg,
places. But, like last night I was at the game too and I watched it. And honestly, after the Oilers scored those first 2 goals, it was kind of like, okay, I think we know the outcome here. And give San Jose credit. I thought they put up a pretty good fight, especially in the second period. I thought they were pretty good. But, the Oilers just kind of took over. I do want to make a special mention of a player on the Sharks team. I generally watch the Oilers. I don't tend to watch the other team too much. But when your eyes are drawn to a certain player or a player on the other team, I think to me it really resonates more. And I say this with some humility, but like Gregor, I thought had a really good game. I think this guy's a really good player. Scores his 10th goal. Big, fast, can shoot. I'm not sure how his usage has been this year and why it's been that way, but every time I see him play, my eyes are drawn to him, and that is usually a good thing because I'm not going in looking to watch. In this case, Noah Gregor, but when your eyes are drawn towards him, I think you got to give the guy some credit. So. Good young player that the Sharks have, but they're going to need about 20 more.
Your buddy's nephew. Hey, your buddy's nephew.
True,
did you hear him yell last night? I heard Jason Gregor yell last night in the crowd.
Oh, geez, he's fired up.
Oh, man, because when Greg's is at the game and we're working together, he's always dressed well, business, professional, sits next to me in the press box, right? He's very official. When Noah's in town, it's like he's got the face paint. He's got the sweater. He's got the shark-colored glasses. He's got the foam finger. Yes. And I swear, when Noah scored that goal, I heard, yeah! And I looked down, and I saw the little, cap, the old-school cap. And I'm like, that's got to be Gregor down there for sure.
Nice. That's what he was screaming. No, I'm not just saying because he's my friend, but because it's not.
I agree with you. He was good.
Yeah, my eyes aren't drawn to a player every game. On the other team, like I said, I'm mostly Oilers focused. When we were playing the Kings or Vegas out, but with all due respect, I'm not really too interested in the Sharks. But I love it when that happens, and it's happened to other players I know what I've watched over the year.
Okay, let's get to the Los Angeles Kings. We felt it was going to most likely be this matchup. It's the way things were trending, and it's where it lands, Struds. We had talked about the Kings being, well, maybe not feared, but I don't think Oilers fans love the idea of the Los Angeles Kings a couple of weeks ago. But let's just kind of quickly run down where the Los Angeles Kings are at and where they finished. So the Kings went on a little bit of a losing skid here late in the season. Oh, where's my notes here? So they ended up losing 3 in a row before closing out with back-to-back wins against Vancouver and Anaheim. So definitely not finishing with as much chutzpah as the Edmonton Oilers are, right? The Oilers with their 9 straight wins. Injury updates. Mikey Anderson, who had not played a game since Connor McDavid ran him into the boards their last meeting, he did play last night. So he was back in their lineup last night. Kevin Fiala hasn't played since April 1st. We'll see what his status is heading into the postseason. So 2 pretty critical, important players. Other than that, reasonably healthy Kings squad. But it shapes up different than last year's series in a couple of ways, Struds. Both teams are different. Some different goaltending in this series this year. I know a lot of the principles involved are going to be the same, but there's some real spicy differences and some new faces that I think are going to make it interesting.
From a hockey perspective, I love this. You know, these are 2 teams that do not like each other. There's a history from last year. I think that Kings will be pissed that they lost. And the Oilers want to put them back in their place again. So, from a hockey world perspective, I think this is what we want as fans, to see some matchup. Just that already has some fire to it. But both teams have changed a lot. But let's keep in mind, last year Drew Doughty wasn't on that team. Neither was Arvidsson. They were both hurt and didn't play well. On the flip side, Leon Draisaitl played with half a leg for quite a bit of that series as well. There were some different things, and both teams have bulked up. Kevin Fiala, his impact on this team of the Kings cannot be underestimated. This guy is all over the lineup. I'm thinking he probably pops in on that third line with Lizotte when he's healthy. I'm not an insider, so I don't know what that update would be. But I think he's a big deal. And then Mikey Anderson also is a significant thing. So, you talk about their struggles recently, having those 2 guys out, it can't help. Alex Edler is capable defenseman, but he's not Mike Anderson right now, and Edler's getting older. So, but on the other side, the Oilers too have significantly changed. I'm not sure the goaltending is way better, but it's different. And then steadier. Ekholm, no. Yeah, steadier. Ekholm is way different. Ekholm is unlike anything they had last year, and that's with all due respect to a future Hall of Famer in Duncan Keith, who was at the end of his career. So, everything's changed. The Oilers are bigger. I don't think they're going to get pushed around by the Kings this series, although I'm not even sure that's what the Kings want to do. But this is a series, I think, that if you're the NHL, you want this matchup. You want to see this, because I think this is what when they set up this format, they want to have continued playoff series year after year to build up animosity.
Pointing out as well, a couple people on our stream, you talked about Doughty. Oilers had a pretty banged up Darnell Nurse, I think, heading into the playoffs, even was dealing with that hip flexor issue. And then, of course, Leon Draisaitl got hurt mid-series. That's when they ended up putting McDavid and Draisaitl together. They did use the 11-7 configuration a fair amount. So it'll be interesting to see what Jay Woodcroft does with his lineup here, Struds. I don't think much is going to change. I think the lines have kind of taken shape here in a lot of ways. Devin Shore was out of the lineup last night with McLeod back. That competition for spots up front is legit. But 11-7 versus 12-6 here versus the Kings. From what you've seen from Philip Broberg versus what you've seen from the Oiler lineup when they run 4 lines that they can roll out, which way do you think the head coach is going to lean here? What would you do, Struds? Do you like the 7th defenseman and the ability to move those guys around a little bit up front? Or do you think that they've got enough good forwards that who do you want to take out?
I'll look at just the history. The last 2 times the Kings have played, I believe Broberg played, and he barely played. Like off the top of my head, I'm going to say in both games he was combined under 10 minutes. So the coach told us how he's going to use it, right? I don't think that they're versus the Kings, at least I'd be surprised if they go 11-7. I think that they're happy with their 6 defensemen. I think that there is competition up front, and unfortunately for Devin Shore, he's out. And I don't know if he did anything wrong, but that's what good teams, the problem they have. So I would expect that they start with 12-6, if you choose to change things or to add, you can always sit one forward out, or sit one down on the bench, and you can still run with 11. It's not like you can't shorten your bench. There's no rule against that. But the Oilers right now are 4 lines deep. 4 lines are playing. I know that some of the teams that haven't played are great, but have success, but they're rolling 4 lines out there. And I do think there's a lot of value to that. And each line seems to bring something. So I'd be really surprised if they go 12, 11, and 7. What about you?
Yeah, I think they're going to go 12 and 6. I would agree with you. The one caveat I'll put on that is Desharnais took a pretty good bump last night. And if there's any concern injury-wise with any of their guys, a lot easier to insulate yourself with an extra defenseman and to, have an extra guy available on the blue line. Like if somebody's a little bit nicked up. Right. Don't really want to go down to 5 defensemen if you don't have to, especially when you have 6 good ones. So I think maybe if their injury situation is okay, I could see them just going with 12 and 6. But you've got Kopitar and Danault on the other side. And by going with 11 forwards and moving guys around a little bit, sometimes you can get away from certain matchups. Sometimes you can, and Jay Woodcroft likes to get crafty with the way he does things. Now, you can still do that. You just sit one of your forwards and play like you have 11. So you can still get creative. But remember last year how he would it'd be McDavid 2 out of the first 3 shifts of the game or 3 out of the first 5 or something like that. And he was just moving stuff all over the place. And I find in the 11-7 formation, he tends to be a lot more creative in games with moving McDavid around and trying to throw the matchup game off. But honestly, I think Jay Woodcroft will be content with him out there against either one of Danault or Kopitar. And I don't think he's going to chase his guy out of or be fearful of either of those matchups. You got to one of those 2 guys is going to be on the ice most of the time against them. And I think you're probably fine to just let McDavid buck right through that.
This will be an interesting comment. I want to know how you take it. I don't think the Oilers are in a need now to have to be tricky. Like, I think their team is deep enough. I think they're strong enough that they can roll out there and say, we're going to play you guys, and our team is enough to beat your team. I think when you're slightly under the gun or it's a close, you feel really pressured, you try to be a little bit more tricky. Now, I might be wrong, but I think that the way those are playing all facets of their game, I think they can just go and play the game and just let their game take over, right? And that's so that doesn't mean I'm not. It sounds a little disrespectful to the Kings, and I don't want to suggest it's going to be a 4-0 rollover, but I think if the Oilers play like they can, they'll be able to have success, shift in, shift out. Are there some times like you don't necessarily want your 4th line out against the first line, repeatedly, especially to start a shift, but on the fly, yeah, let's do it. So I hear what you're saying, but respectfully, I think the Oilers can play their game and beat the Kings without having to be, super, super tricky.
Evasive with certain players.
Right.
Misdirection, head fakes, thought it was this guy, that guy's going. Right. Suddenly McDavid's out with some random line he never plays with, all that kind of stuff. Jay Woodcroft, he used that a lot this year, and he did that stuff a lot. But I love the point you're making with the way they're playing right now. I mean, just let your team go and play those guys as much as you want, but really you can keep the lines largely intact and just play those guys as you need them. Looking back at
just you trust them, but then you might want to save some of those tricks for, round 2 or round 3. I still think Colorado's a monster. I think they're a monster, and maybe that's I'm a little bit off with maybe some of the injuries they're dealing with, but I don't think you need to show your hand the first round about how you're going to be tricky. Although you've shown some stuff, you maybe get deeper. That's maybe when you use that when it's now a team that maybe feels more on your level.
Well, and really, I think the strategy coming out in game 1 is probably to do what you say, Struds, and not overthink it and just let your team be your team. Just let them go out and do their thing and not overthink it. But suddenly you're down 2-1 in a series or down 3-1 in a series. The flow of the series and the flow of the games really dictates how much we're going to see that. But it wouldn't surprise me if Jay Woodcroft's plan was to just kind of let her roll and let his guys go do their thing and then adjust on the fly if he has to. His team's playing unbelievable. I mean, let's put this in a perspective here, man. They got 29 out of 30 points to close the season out.
Yeah.
In the last 15 games, they got 29 out of 30 points that were available to them. They won 9 straight games. to close out the season. And they weren't easy games. They were meaningful games, a lot of them, against teams fighting for playoff position. So kind of just I don't know, try and put into perspective how well this team is playing going into the playoffs, Struds. But when the puck drops in game one, how does that matter? How does 9 straight wins and 29 out of 30 points apply itself to the first period of the first game of the Stanley Cup playoffs? Because if the Kings score first, does it all just go poof? Or was something built in that time that's going to matter?
Yeah, I don't think that the wins themselves and the points matter. It's how you're playing. And, they'll trust the process. The way that they're playing, I think that's the bigger, even if the Oilers had lost all their games, but they were playing like they were now, I'd be like, I feel comfortable about their game. That's the important part. How are you playing?
Yeah.
Is your game in order? Is everything can you check all the boxes of different areas of your game? Yes. We've gone through the specialty teams, 5-on-5 play, goaltending, physicality, health, all these things.
Yeah.
You've got all these boxes checked. I don't know how they could be better positioned than they are right now for game one of the playoffs. That doesn't mean that they're going to win the Stanley Cup, but you've got everything in order. So you should be feeling confident heading into game one. And there's going to be adversity, right? There could be, penalty problems. There could be, penalty kill problems. There could be, whatever goalie problems, whether it's yours or the other team. There's all kinds of things that can happen, but they've set themselves up to feel good for game 83. And really, what more can any team ask for?
Talking to Connor McDavid post-game last night, let's get to the Weiss Johnson sound box. 45 years they have in the business, so if you need a new furnace, garage heater, air conditioner, hot water tank, or if you have any of those things and you need them serviced, Weiss Johnson can get that done for you. Always have some great specials going on too, so make sure you Google them and check out their website. They're at 5803 Roper Road, or give them a call, 780-463-3096. Dennis and the crew, super pumped for round one of the playoffs.
Weiss Johnson,
Okay, hey, Connor McDavid talking post-game. I think I got my clips mixed up here, so I'm not sure which one is about to come out. I think this is McDavid talking about, well, let's just play it.
I would just say more mature,
More mature. Okay, he was asked about what this team has learned compared to previous playoff teams and how they may be different. Are they better? Are they different? Here's his answer.
I would just say more mature, more mature. We've been there. We've taken it a step further now, with last year, and those are all learning experiences. We like we talked about kind of a week ago now. Those are all learning experiences that you need to put into good use now.
All business, Struds, this leadership group, the tempo that they've set, the standard they've set in that room. I haven't seen it like this before, the way the team will self-correct. When things aren't going in the right direction, they have this way of fixing it among them. Mm-hmm. I just think the standard that has been set out of a desperation to win by players that are so respected, I just think there's a real tone that's been set in that room that is going to matter, even in a different way than last year.
When great young players come into league, they want to assert themselves in the league and show everybody what they are, how good they are, how they can do. They want to test themselves against the best. And Connor and Leon have done that for a long time. And then there comes a point where you realize, okay, and this isn't about them being selfish, but it's not about me. I now have to make sure my team's ready. And that's leadership. That's what leaders do. They even when their game is really good or struggling, they still have the ability to influence the group and impact the group with understanding how you have to play and the way you have to be. And I think Connor and Leon and Darnell and I think Nuge, these guys get that. It's a different look. Like when someone blocks a shot or scores a goal, you see Connor go out of his way to give someone a tap, or Leon, like that goes a long way. And so that's just the tip of the iceberg. But I'd love to see what's being said behind the closed doors. But that's the evolution of great players. And I feel that maturity is the perfect word, because as those guys mature, they force and encourage the rest of the group to adopt that same way of play.
Yeah, McDavid's just all business, man. Like, we were trying to ask him last night about his season and just historic in a lot of ways and for what he's done and everything. And he's just like, it was a good year and felt good, but it's all about it's all about, and that's what you would want, right? He's just wired that way, and he sends that signal. Everybody else seems to follow. Diving into the season series here a little bit between these two teams, 2 wins and 2 losses. But remember, they lost the first 2 games of the year against them. But one of the losses, Struds, excuse me, was a real pivotal loss, kind of a game changer for them. That 6-3 loss back on January 9th, where the Kings power play dominated the Oilers penalty kill. The Oilers power play was dominated by the Kings penalty kill. Like, there was a total flip-flop on the special teams. They got smoked in that game from a special team standpoint. It was a wake-up call because they went on a great run after that. And basically, since the 11th of January, we're the best team in the National Hockey League. That included a 2-0 shutout win against LA on March 30th, and then closing out the season series with a 3-1 win on April 4th. Very different games from the start of the year to the end of the year. And both teams were missing players. They'd never really faced each other with their full lineups like they're likely going to here. But really good that the Oilers got some good results against the Kings here late in the season that they can build off of, because LA was dominant in those first 2 games, and McDavid and Draisaitl had almost nothing in those first couple matchups.
I think Jay Woodcroft referenced actually that game you're speaking about yesterday in his pregame, just talking how they made some adjustments on their penalty kill after that. I think dominating would be understated. The Kings were all over them. So they made some adjustments, and you don't want to make excuses, but the team wasn't fully healthy at that point, right? They were missing some players, and then
Kane
players
around,
that just
right?
Yeah, Kane wasn't there, but even then we're talking about a different Fogle compared to now.
Desharnais hadn't been born yet.
Yeah, Desharnais hadn't been unleashed. Cross-checking hadn't been unleashed on the NHL.
The Kraken, the defensive Kraken had not yet been released.
Just unleash the fury, Mitch. So, like all these different guys hadn't quite got there, right? And I think before Christmas, they were quite unsettled. And then they kind of found their groove. And you talk even about Clean Costin coming up, even the Janmark coming up. And then you kind of move a little forward towards the trade deadline, the guys they acquired that helped them there. All those things, it's not one thing I think that's going to make a difference. It's all of it added up, and it just brick by brick, you kind of build it. So, I'm not tossing away those first 2 games. That is not what I'm saying. But I feel like we saw the truer picture of who the Oilers are the last quarter of the season, and what they are. They're a big team that can skate, play physical, can score, whose penalty kill has gone, way better. It's gotten way, way better. And maybe the word I should use is more consistent. And then whose power play is historically great. So there's a lot of things about this team that have shifted. Now, on the other side, with the Kings, they also have some new players. We mentioned Fiala, but I think that, Gavrikov, although I know you were a huge advocate for him coming here to the Oilers, I wasn't quite the same. Just kidding. No, but he makes a difference for their team. I think that their goaltending was upgraded by what they added. I know with now the two, who's it, Carpusalo, and of course Phoenix Copley. I love that. I love that story about him. So they've also evolved, right? But who's evolved more? Well, we saw the Oilers take care of them back-to-back games and playing the way the Kings want to play. Those weren't shootouts. The Kings want to play a tight game. The Oilers said, okay, we can play that way. So, I think the Oilers, those are 2 real good confidence builders for the Oilers, and maybe put a little bit of doubt inside the Kings' mind. But they're a very good team. Like you cannot, for Oilers fans, I would rather play the Kings than Winnipeg. But do not underestimate this Kings team. They're a good team, well coached, organized, and it's going to be a tough series. I just can't see this one being quick.
Scott Thompson 68 here in our Reese Johnson Twitter mention says, "Is it me? I'm not fearing the LA Kings like I was a month ago. I fear the Jets more this morning." From Scott. I think the point is the Kings kind of dipped a bit, and the Jets built their way into it and got some momentum. I think the reason you would feel that way is all about Connor Hellebuck, right? Like, do you think this is a better matchup for the Oilers than the Winnipeg Jets would have been? Do you think, because you can get goalied against Winnipeg. I don't know you're going to get goalied against the Kings, but you can get goalied against Winnipeg.
Yes, and I Winnipeg has been I don't know what it is. I get suckered into my fool's gold for years. I think for a while, Ray Ferraro joked that San Jose was at his team for many years.
For sure. He picked them every year he picked them.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that to beat up on Ray. He's a very informed and well-educated an analyst. But for years, I'm like, the Jets, this is the year. This is the year. And this year I didn't pick them, and then they have a hell of a start, and they've kind of dropped off. Now they're kind of coming back to life. But there's some things I like. I like their centers. I like their D. I like Pionk in a 7-game series. He's going to abuse you. Brandon Dillon, same thing. I'll take Josh Morrissey. I like those guys. We got Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, some veterans there. Then PLPD or whatever his name is, Pierre-Luc Dubois, another player I like. Ehlers, I'm not sure where it's at with him, but they've got a lot of good. And Lowry. Lowry is one of my favorite bottom 6 forwards in the league. Yeah. So there's a lot to like about that team. So
how about Lowry scrapping Ryan Reeves second last game of the year or last game, whatever that was?
I love it. But that's Adam Lowry. He's not taking it. He's not taking that crap. And I know he can say, "Well, it's a worthless fight." No, not to Adam Lowry. He's like, enough. And he did really well. So you put it all together. I think that's a tough matchup for anybody. And neither team. I mean, you're in the playoffs, but if you're the Oilers, you don't want to be thinking, "Oh, I'd rather play this team than that team." You don't care. If you actually think you can win the Stanley Cup, right? It doesn't matter. You didn't care. And I don't think the Oilers do care. They're more worried about how they're playing, their skill, and what they can do.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you finish a season winning 14 of 15, getting 29 out of 30 points, and winning 9 in a row, you're not sitting there too worried about anybody. You're ready to go. You believe. Yeah. You know you're going to have to run through some great teams to get to where you want to go. And maybe in a certain way, even if you did fear one team maybe more than another, if you really feel like you're going to have to run through that team, just bring them on. Get at them when you're healthy and just go for it, right? This can be a great challenge for the Oilers. This Kings team, the one thing they have the antidotes, right? They have these 2 defensive centers who are specialists at focusing on a two-way game, shutting down the other team's big centers. This is what they do. They have not 1, but 2 of these guys. And if you think about the premier defensive centers in the league, or two-way centers in the league, you don't get very deep down the list before you've said both Kopitar and Deneau. Just so happens the Oilers have the 2 best offensive centers on the planet, right? So it's this yin and yang thing with these 2 teams. And if you look at the first few matchups, they did a good job on McDavid and Draisaitl. But you still take McDavid and Draisaitl against those 2, just based on the sheer volume of offense they've created and the sheer ability they have, and they've shown they can do it against them.
I don't think you can overlook that third line, which might be Lizotte, Iafallo, and Fiala. That's a really good line. And then Kempe, like they've got some
Kempe's such a good player. The one question for me, Struds, Byfield in the top 6. That's interesting for me, right? A young player. Not a great offensive year. It'd be interesting to see how he makes out there.
Big body. For me, about him, it's understanding how to play defense, because you're going to be against some other really top lines. And I wonder if that's not a little crack in the foundation that Jay might try to work. But that third line, I come back to it. That third line of Lizotte, Iafallo, and I'm going to guess Fiala. I'm going to put him in that spot. Is the Oilers third line as good as that group? Can they play with those guys? Can they? And that is. We can talk about the top 2 lines, but that third line for the Kings is really, really good. That's their leading point scorer on the third line, right? So that can, and I know it's not a direct matchup, but they need to be able to, if not neutralize, slow down that group a little bit, because that line will sneak up and bite you.
Stuart Skinner going to be doing all this for the first time. Now, he did have a front row seat and was able to watch it last year. But we talked to him post-game last night as we get back to the Weiss Johnson soundbox here, and I basically said to him, like, this city lights up. Everything gets more intense. Everything gets more it all ramps up a significant amount. And how he thinks he's going to handle that.
It's so much fun. Everyone in every store that you go to is wearing Oilers jerseys. I was here. I had the privilege to be here during the playoff run, and especially in the third round there, like I thought the building was going to just crumble how loud the fans were. And I'm really excited that I'm actually able to be in the room for that and be on the ice for that. So I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun and use the energy that the fans give us.
Record-setting season, a record-tying season here for Stuart Skinner. Just an unbelievable season, right? What did he beat Grant Fuhr's rookie record? Is that what it was? For wins?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's been unreal. He's saved the season for them. If Stuart Skinner doesn't do what he does this year, who knows if Jack Campbell would have been able to get it on the rails in time. He's been unreal. And listen, Connor McDavid was asked about Stuart Skinner last night post-game as well. And just listen to some of the points that McDavid makes about their rookie goaltender.
What I know about Stu is he's won at every level he's played at. I think he's a winner. The pressures or whatever it is in the playoffs, I don't think is anything new to him. Obviously at this level it's new, but he's won a junior. He's won in the American League. He's been a great goaltender all the way up, and we believe in our other guy too.
Struds, what's the jump? You've played on the biggest stage there is to play in junior. You've won in junior. You've experienced that. You've been through that. When you step into an NHL playoff atmosphere, is it significant? Do you see this guy being jarred at all?
It's the NHL, so it's different, but he has the experience of being in big moments. And until you've been in a big moment, you've never been in a big moment. And you don't know how you've reacted.
Yeah.
So he checks off a lot of boxes. And Connor makes a really good point. He's won at every level. And if you don't win, but you're in those pressure moments, you grow as a person. I think going to the All-Star game would have been huge for him. Huge, because it feels like it in his own mind, he should feel like he's on level with everyone else in the league.
He's not just with all those fellas now, hey?
That's right. It wasn't the Young Guns game. He wasn't there to sign autographs for Upper Deck.
No fantasy camp, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a kissing booth. He was there because he earned his spot. And I think that makes a big difference. So could he have some moments of queasiness in the playoffs? Yeah, he 100% could. But there'll be other guys too. He won't be the only one, right? Like it is, Jay Woodcroft made a comment last night. He goes, about the playoff hockey, he said, do hard or do how do you say it? He goes, you have to do hard things in high pressure situations, and that's the playoffs and in any league. But at the highest league, that's what it is. So Skinner, I actually think he's looked calmer and calmer as the season's gone on.
Isn't that weird? I agree with you. Crazy. I totally agree with you. He's getting more chill, even in the room. He's getting more chill,
and he's efficient. Like he's so efficient with his movement as a D-man. That makes me so calm. When I look back and I see my goalie, looks like he's juggling 5 plates in the air and trying to send a text. Like it was so scary. This guy is so calm back there.
Yeah.
And I think that his personality, I think it'll help him through these moments. But I'm if I'm the Oilers, I'm very comfortable with Stu Skinner. He's going to go in there and he's going to, I don't know what else the guy has to do to prove that he's ready to be a game 1 starter.
This is where the one thing I would have said about the way they handled Skinner this year is that he didn't have a super long leash to make mistakes and get right back in there. They didn't do that a lot this year. If Skinner tripped up because they had Jack Campbell sitting there waiting to go, often it would just mean Campbell was in the next game. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to be in a situation where he's doing something that he's never done before on a big stage. And I'm not sure how it's going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a little bit nervous. But I think it's going to be important for the Oilers to be patient with Skinner through a bump or two. Even though at a lot of times in a lot of junctures this season, they weren't necessarily. And we talked a lot about goaltending this year, Struds. And I talked a lot about giving Stuart Skinner the respect as a starter. He's now earned it, right? There was a certain point where that changed. Mm-hmm. And so you got to, and the reason why I wanted to see that was if your starter doesn't get the result he wants, you give him that starter's respect and throw him right back in there and let him bounce back and let him get it back instead of feeling like if he doesn't get the result, now next guy's up, right? It's that respect you give your starter knowing you're going to need him. Well, they're now in a situation where he is clearly their starter. How's he going to be if things don't go well in terms of bouncing back? And I think it's going to be important that whatever the Oilers see from Stuart Skinner in the early going here, they give him the opportunity because he has clearly been the better guy. Give him the opportunity through any bumps that might come up early to just push through and be the guy that he's been all year. Because at times this season, he didn't have the rope that I feel a starter probably should have, that you want him to have had heading into the playoffs.
So I'll challenge you a little bit there, because what I see, the way that Jay handled him, I think he was trying to be supportive of a young goalie, right, and not making him feel like the moment's too big. I don't, it feels like I'm hearing from you that you're suggesting they pull the rug out from underneath him all the time.
No,
that's
too harsh.
Well, that's what you're saying. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, you're trying to radio me.
No. I understand what you're saying, but I do think they were trying to be respectful of a young goalie and really support him. I mean, they're smart in there. They know who their guy is. Let's say game one, the big guy, he has a tough start. I put him right back in game two. He's the guy. I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. I cannot see it going, well, Skinner has a tough game one, which I don't think will happen. But let's say he does. Now we're going to Campbell. Going to Campbell? Really? I would be blown away by that. Yeah. I think that he has earned that right, but they've nurtured him. Jace, I believe you talked about it last night. I can't remember which one it was, the morning or the nighttime. But he goes, this isn't a tired goalie. Like we looked after him, we've managed him, and so they're managing not just a player but a rookie. And that's different than managing Carey Price at 30 years old. I
don't know the answer to this question, but here's my point. I'm not saying that they're going to go to Campbell right away or they're going to pull the rug out from underneath him in the playoffs. This is what I'm going to say. How many opportunities was Stuart given Skinner? And I don't know the answer to this. And, it might, maybe they have done it more than what I recall. But how many opportunities did Skinner have to come out and have an off night and get right back in there and sort himself out? 2 days later, right back in there. Because that's what you need your starter to be able to do.
Well, how many tough nights did he actually have?
Earlier on in the year, there were more, right?
But let's be fair. To be fair, the team wasn't sharp either.
Yeah.
The team wasn't fair.
But I'm talking about how you handle the goalie, right? That muscle you're trying to develop in your goalie. Get him right back in there. Go.
I know. But so let's just I would almost count this as two separate years. Game 1 to 40, then game 41 to 82. I think it's two different teams. I mean, in the first part of the season, we were doing this podcast. We're talking about it all the time. The lack of detail, attention to detail, all that stuff that the Oilers were making mistakes and just it was just too easy. And so I think at times they left their goalies out to dry and didn't make it easy. And I'm not blaming just the players. Specifically Campbell had a tough start. But I think the second half, I just haven't seen that as much.
Yeah.
I think that goalies I think what goalies crave or they want is understanding where their shots are coming from. And I think a lot of times on the penalty kill and on their D zone, it's more predictable. It's not 2-on-1s out of the corner or breakaways out of the corners or bad. It's just, so I don't know, man. Let's just look at the second half. How many times do you think that Skinner got,
second half is totally different because the team just played lights out. I mean, they were just ridiculous how good they were. So those opportunities there weren't as many. But back earlier on in the year when they were jockeying for position, and it was like, oh, Skinner looks like he's maybe grabbed this thing from Campbell now. Ooh, this is no longer a 1-2 or even a 1A, 1B. Okay. Anyway, we're really splitting hairs and we're really digging down to a level I'm probably overthinking it, to be honest. I'll close it out by saying this. I'm going to be really interested to see how Stuart Skinner rebounds from any adversity that he faces here in the playoffs. I'll be interested to see that because tough to do it for the first time. And it'll be interesting to see how he does it. I think the guy is mentally tough. I think he's calm as can be. I think he's got all the tools. And I don't think it's going to be an issue for the Oilers, but we'll be watching with great interest on the goaltending front.
Agreed. That was easy.
That was easy. All right. Well, Struds, I think I'm going to hit the music here, eh? Let's wrap it up here on a Friday morning. Cue the music. Look at you leaning back, all relaxed. You're kind of like off to the side here. We're just like super casual podcast. I'm going to give her this one. Super casual podcast today, bud. I liked it.
82 games. We made her. We did 82 to get to where we can now talk about what really counts.
How do you think we did this year compared to season 1?
That was good. I liked it.
We hit our stride a little more this year. Hey, we kind of got this live streaming thing down. Yeah, we got your mess of a set figured out. Yeah, we got your earpiece. Those ridiculous headphones are gone.
I missed them. Kept my ears warm. But no, I think it's been good. I think it's been really good. And thanks to everyone for listening. And we're looking forward to hopefully we can do another, hopefully 25 to 30 these bad boys.
Oh, yeah.
Deep run.
We're going to keep them rolling. Okay, pal. Good stuff today. Thank you kindly. By the way, keep your eye out on our socials on Got Your Back. I think LeBrun and Johnny and I may drop a full playoff preview pod tomorrow. I think we're going to try and get that together if we can. All the matchups will be set by then, and we can talk about many, many things. Struds, you were so good on the big pod this week that I strongly considered inviting you for the playoff preview pod. Like, really strongly considered it. But I can't afford you, so it's probably not going to happen.
I know the truth, Pierre. Pierre said no. He didn't like it. A couple of my comments just didn't resonate with the big man.
You were harder on me than you were on him, but it was no, it was fun, buddy. We'll get you back on that pod again soon. Have a great day, my man. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, guys.
All right, that is Jason Strudwick. That'll wrap up the podcast today, the live stream. Thanks for, by the way, honorable mention to Obelisk21 here on the stream. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 21 comments that I can see. So sorry we didn't get to a few more of them, but Struddy and I had some business to take care of there. More podcasts coming your way. Series set to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, we believe. Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings. It's going to be lots of fun. Thanks to our sponsors, Mid-City Construction Management, Weiss Johnson, the horses as well. Horse Racing Alberta, a valued sponsor here on Got Your Back Short Shifts. Take her easy, folks. We'll chat again real soon. Cheers.